Today we have a wonderful story. Watch until the end, like and subscribe, and let's begin. You ever stand at the bottom of a hill and swear it grew since the last time you climbed it? That's where I was. 12 a.m., drunk enough to feel brave, lazy enough to make bad choices, and tired enough not to care. I stared up the street like it was Everest, then made the decision that would ruin the night and my life, literally. I took a shortcut. You know the kind. Dark alley, suspicious puddles, smells like regret and expired takeout. One of those backways that cities pretend don't exist until someone dies in them. I had made it halfway before I heard the footsteps. Heavy, fast, coming right for me. Wallet, now. The guy had a ski mask, a knife, and the dead eyes of someone who still says, Wilo, unironically. I put my hands up, heart hammering in my chest. No problem, man. I said, take it. It's mostly expired coupons and punch cards for a taco place that closed in 2019. He didn't laugh. $7. He said, putting my wallet in his pocket. Should have mugged me 5 hours ago before I started drinking, I said sarcastically. Clearly not amused at my lack of funds, he lunged at me. As unsteady on my feet as I was, I still managed to grab his wrist and stop the knife from meeting my gut. But then something happened. He froze. His eyes went wide, not at me, but past me. I turned to look and saw what he saw. A tall, shadowy figure standing behind us, cloaked in black, holding something glowing. Confused, I released my grip. The mugger panicked. The knife jerked. The heat as the knife slid into my stomach was intense. The mugger dropped the knife and ran away screaming. And I died. Date with death. You'd think death would be more dramatic. More choirs, bright lights and bliss, less alley. Instead, I was standing next to my own body, bleeding next to a pile of trash bags, watching a floating skull in a cloak scroll through an app like he was checking his Instagram. A tablet, an actual glowing tablet, in death's hands. Wait, is that an iPad? I asked. He glanced at it. Technically, it's a die-pad. Really? I asked, impressed by the pun. That's what we called it. Marketing had fun with that one. Legal hated it. Apple threatened to sue us for copyright infringement. I blinked. Apple's that powerful? Death nodded solemnly. They once buried a demon in litigation. So long he gave up and went back to hell signing an NDA. Anyway, he said, standing to his full height, towering over me. D. Winters, he said, voice booming like someone who'd practiced in cathedrals. Your time on this mortal plane has come to an end. I stared at him. That's it? D. Winters? I don't even get a full name. I just got prison shanked by a tweaker, and you greet me like a cold caller. The figure paused. Apologies, he said, lowering his head and taping the screen. Full name retrieval. He gave his second attempt. Daniel Winters, your time. I cut him off. Dylan. He blinked, which was impressive for someone with no eyelids. I beg your pardon? Confusion echoing in his voice. Dewilian Dylan. Winters. I repeated. Death frowned, or gave the best skeletal approximation. I see, Death murmured. He zoomed in on the tablet screen, his bony finger pinching and swiping like a confused grandfather. He opened the camera app by accident and took a picture of his own feet. Damn it, he muttered. That's the third time this week. He tapped furiously. Somewhere down the block, a pedestrian's phone dinged. Death winced. Ugh. I think I just airdropped my foot pic to that guy with the labradoodle. A few taps later, and he opened the sole profile, revealing a selfie of a man in a ski mask, holding a knife and flipping off the camera. He tapped the screen again. It buzzed angrily. Ugh. Great. The afterlife's Wi-Fi is acting up again. He said with a gesture that would have been an eye roll if he had eyes. You guys have Wi-Fi? I say in utter disbelief. It's eternal, but not unlimited. Limbo uses all the bandwidth streaming reruns of Friends. I crossed my arms. So you were meant to collect a mugger's soul? Death gave me a long look. Yaramam. I died because you don't know how to use your freaking death app. This is my life, not a DoorDash order. I snap at him. In hindsight, yelling at death is probably not the best idea, but I was already dead. He adjusted his cloak like it was a nervous habit. It seems I may have appeared prematurely. The mugger saw me, panicked, and, well, killed me. I say far too bitchy for a man of my size. Yes, instead of dying while running off after you disarmed him, he inadvertently caused your death, which was not, I repeat, not on today's agenda. I glared at him. Then fix it. It's not that simple. Once a soul separates from its body, it cannot return. I walked over and poked my own corpse. Feels like there's still some life left. I say, glaring at death. Death scrolled of the terms and conditions. Aha! If the soul originally marked for death is collected before sunrise, the correction can be made. I stared at him. So, if we get the mugger's soul before dawn, I can live? Yes. We have roughly, he checked his watch, 5 hours and 42 minutes. No Apple Watch? I asked sarcastically. They don't make bands small enough for my wrists, and you're being sarcastic, he said, pulling down the sleeve of his cloak, hiding his stick-thin arms. I sighed. Well, I hope you've got an Uber account on that thing. Death lowers his eyes. They don't let us put personal apps on these things. No app store. Only apparitions, he added wistfully. I wonder if passing over would be easier than dealing with this guy. Death is in the details. We started at the crime scene, where Death poked around like a forensic investigator at a birthday party. Amateur mugger, he muttered. No gloves. No plan. Tattoo that says loyal to the bone on his left wrist. That'll help. He says, adding notes on his tablet. We know his name. Can't you just Google him on the Death Wiki or something? I ask. We get a name in place. He don't stalk people. That would be weird. He shrugs. Should I be worried that you're taking this so casually? I asked. Look, I had to read Betty White. This is nowhere near as depressing. He says, pointing to a wall with a camera. I stopped in my tracks. Oh, I love Betty White. Death nodded solemnly. Everyone does. Imagine how much hate I got after that. I trended on Twitter for 4 days. Someone started a petition to cancel me. It goes so many names, he sighed. The other deaths threw their sandals at me when I got back to the office. I blinked. Wait, there are other deaths. He turned and stared at me. I'm spending almost 6 hours trying to save you. You think no one else is dying right now? Of course there are other deaths. He paused, then added more quietly. So many sandals. We checked the security cams. Death simply waved his hand and played the footage on a nearby wall like a projector. The mugger had fled toward the strip mall. Retracing the mugger's path, Death waved his bony hand and projected the mugger's escape route like a murdery slideshow. We followed him across a few rooftops, through a gas station, and finally to a dingy dive bar called the Stab Inn. Yes, seriously. That's way too on the nose. I muttered. Pun-based establishments are statistically 73% more likely to harbor soul offenders. Death replied. Soul offenders? I question. Those that have either evaded death or have sold their souls and refused to pay up, he offers nonchalantly. We enter the dive bar like a discount Magnum, repeated. Ian, whoever his partner is, one glowing dead guy and a being that absorbed light. No one noticed. Rude, I thought. Inside, the mugger was downing shots and talking to himself. Or the bartender. Or chair. Hard to tell. I'm telling you, man, he slurred. He had AF *****ing tablet. Its light lit up his skull face. I approached. Hey, pal. The mugger turned, stared at the glowing apparition of the man he killed, and promptly screamed. He ran. Fast. Faster than he had after killing me. Death and I followed. The former floating through walls, the latter opening them politely. We cornered him in an alley behind the bar. Ironic that he would also die in an alley. Back off! The mugger shouted, brandishing his knife again. I ain't going back to jail. You're not, Death said. You're going to the afterlife. The mugger's knife dropped an inch. Wait, so am I dead? You were supposed to be, I said, crossing my arms. Instead, I am. The mugger's face contorted. You're kidding. Nope. I say straight-faced. So now what? You're gonna kill me? Death tilted his skull. Technically, I already did. Just to wrong you. The mugger looked at me, then at Death, then at the sky. How much time do I have? Death checked the tablet. 3 minutes. At 5:57 a.m. in the backlot convenience store. Because where else? Death tapped his tablet. The mugger's phone dinged his pocket. Took it out and looked at the screen. He blinked. Did you, for reals, just send me a picture of your feet? I looked at Death. Seriously? Death sighed and muttered, airdrop is a real curse. I wish we went back to scrolls instead of scrolling. He said, tapping the screen again. This time a portal opened against the wall, blues, greens, and golds all twisted together in the most beautiful shape I've ever seen. Step inside, and you will move on from this mortal plane. Death said, pointing at the swirling, pulsing vortex. What if, and hear me out, I don't. The mugger said, eyeing what he was hoping was an escape right out of the alley and away from the big scary skull in the road. Then you will suffer unimaginable pain when you do die. Checking his tablet and sliding a finger up, Death continued, next Thursday at 6:27 p.m., you'll be shot by an off-duty police officer that you try to mug and bleed out slowly from an excruciating wound. It will not be quick. The mugger scratched his head. Okay, but what's the afterlife situation? Are there perks? Death's last laugh. The mugger looked at me. No hard feelings? You stabbed me, Dick. I spit. Okay, some hard feelings. He says, shrugging. The mugger slumped. Do I get to haunt anyone? Sure, Death said. You get to pick one ex and a houseplant. He considered it. Okay, fine. But I want a cool pose. Like when they find me, badass, heroic. Flex up like I went out fighting. Death and I exchanged a look. Absolutely, I said with solemn nod. Totally, Death agreed. We'll make you look like a legend. The mugger gave a thumbs up and stepped into the portal. Seconds later, Death and I stood over the now lifeless body. So, I asked, how heroic are we talking? Death cracked his bony knuckles. Full yoga swan? Oh, definitely. Maybe jazz hands, too. We got to work. By the time we finished, the mugger looked like he was mid-breakdance battle, one leg in the air, head tilted back dramatically, fingers splayed in a double peace sign. Death tilted his skull. He said badass. He didn't say by whose standards. Let the memes begin, I said. Death held up his tablet to take a picture but took a selfie instead. He tried to delete it. The mugger's phone dinged again. I looked at him. You really are technologically challenged, he shrugged and turned to face me. Well, Dylan, we have successfully amended an accounting error. No need to escalate this to management and tarnish my record. He says, raising his hand for a high five. No high fives for you. You get no high fives for fixing your own screw up. I say, my brow furrowed. He lowers his hand slowly. Wait, how do I escalate this with management? I ask. Death tapped his tablet. My chest burned. My heart kicked. I gasped and woke up. Alive. In pain. But alive. The alley smelled worse than I remembered. My wallet was still missing. But I was breathing. That seemed like a fair trade. I looked down and the blood still stained my shirt, but there was no wound underneath. Then something drifted down onto my chest. A note. No, a tarot card. The death card. Charred around the edges. I picked it up and on the back, burned into card, were 3 words. See you soon. I stared at it, then looked around the alley. How soon? I called out, come on, man, how soon? I shout again. No answer. I got up slowly, dusted myself off, and made a mental note. No more shortcuts. I walked back out of the alley the way I had come, ready for the long walk up the hill that now didn't seem like such a gigantic task. I reached into my back pocket to find my wallet. I opened it to find my whole $7 and all my punch cards. Actually, I muttered to myself, I think this taco place is still open.